you ready for some rapid fire?
Oh, God, I'll give it a shot. Let me have another sip of this red wine.
Well, we haven't done this for a few months, so it's really good to be sort of back in the habit.
All right. Hopefully I won't fuck it up too badly or embarrass myself. See you in court. See you in court. All right.
All right. So easy ones.
All right.
Of course, as we've mentioned earlier on, your brother is Shane Jacobson, of course. Are you two only siblings?
Oh, son of a bitch. No, I have three other siblings. I have two sisters. Sorry, I've got there's four of us all up. So yes, Shane, Natalie, and Kim. Yep.
And are they involved in entertainment?
Well, yeah, and Natalie is a really great dancer and dance teacher. Kim is a terrific singer and has given birth to a couple of great singers. There's talent there that I'm sure we'll all get to hear about. You know, they're at that sort of blossoming stage of being around 17 or 18 and just coming into their own. But yeah, a very talented family.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And do people ever confuse you for Shane?
All the time. All the time. I actually was talking to Shane on a street corner, and I had a guy come up to me. He couldn't see Shane because he had his back to him, but he came up to me and said, "Hey, mate, has anyone ever told you look just like him?" And but no, I do get it all the time. I acted in a series called Top of the Lake 2 with Jane Campion's series, and I took my son to the screening which we had at the Melbourne Film Festival, and everyone sat through all 6 episodes at once, and then this sort of horde of audience sort of all came out, and every single person that stopped me. And all started off with, "Shane, I just want to say I really enjoyed you in that show." And so I rang Shane up and I said, "Well, mate, you're either going to win an award, or you'll live or you'll die on my performance, because everyone is convinced it's you." And then I had this one guy say, he said, "Oh no, I thought you were great in that, Shane." I said, "Well, I'm actually talking about my brother. So I'm in that. My brother wasn't in that." He said, "Oh, sorry, that was my mistake." He said, "But I did think he was good in Animal Kingdom." I said, "Well, that was me too." And he said, "Oh, right." He said, "But weren't you in Jack Iris?" I said, "No, that was Shane." So
That's hilarious. So as a kid, what movie did you watch more than any others?
2001. And then when I got a little older, it was Apocalypse Now. I watched Apocalypse Now 9 times in 1 week. I was part of a group with Star Wars, and back then we would actually go to the movies. I clocked up, I think, 75 viewings of the film in the year or so that it was playing. Now that's paid for, and me riding a bike into town from Avondale Heights to watch it. But yeah, I think I got up to about 74 or 75 viewings. Yeah.
Wow. We talk about Apocalypse Now on our show a lot. That's Do you have a preferred cut of that film?
I absolutely hate all the alternate cuts.
Same.
I hate them for all kinds of reasons. I know how. I mean, I read Walter Murch's book on the cutting of that, and he actually did the maths. He worked out that on the first edit, that if you weighed up how long they spent cutting it and how many editors they had on it, and how many days they spent on it, it was the equivalent of 5 people coming into a room every day for a year, and they would spend 8 hours deciding on where one cut would be made. 5 of them. So they seriously put that through the mill, and it's a beautiful piece of work. And a lot of what is great about that first film is the enigma that they create with Kurtz. The fact that he really is sort of an alter ego, really, of sorts. He's the sort of, he's the id, the dark side of the id, and him sort of slipping in and out of darkness is really beautiful, because it is the darkness within us all. And in all the subsequent scenes, they just, and there was something about Willard's drive to just, no matter what he was going to get to this, and he needed to see his own journey into the dark side of himself, and nothing was going to stop it. Like that one line, I take one look at you and I, whatever that line is, I take one look at you and I know we're in for a ride or whatever. But in the re-edits they did, he ends up handing petrol he gives petrol to and I'm sort of going, he wouldn't do that. I mean, that immediately dissolves his resolve, right?
Yep.
And then they have all these scenes of Marlon Brando sitting out playing with children, and it completely it demystifies the man, and it actually humanizes him in a way that I think is a great. Clearly, the winery was in trouble. Right, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
I've been to Coppola's restaurant too. He's got a fantastic restaurant. I could show you. I've got his menu in the other room there. And, clearly the shop and his winery were doing poorly, and he needed to, just as he's just recently recut Godfather 3. But I must say that's actually not a bad edit.
That's a good edit. We talked about that recently too. I mean, because much debate on our show about whether Godfather 3 is a good film at all, which, I am the one and only person that says it is a good film. Obviously, it's not 1 or 2, but I think this new cut kind of puts it back in that ballpark. It might be outside the gates, sort of, of the ballpark, but it's in the vicinity,
Yeah, I didn't like it when I first saw it. I remember seeing it in Sydney when it first came out at the George Cinemas, and I was really deflated with it. I was also disturbed by it was one of the first films where Al Pacino dropped his voice.
Yeah.
He was trying to age himself. So, Al Pacino in all of his early films has that fantastic whiny, high-pitched voice. Yeah. And then suddenly it was like dragging me back in. It's all that hoo-ha and all, and from that film on, it sort of became a bit of a gimmick for him. And it's funny. But as a film, I think the re-edit is much better. I mean, there's weird stuff in. I mean, casting your daughter in that role is kind of, there's some strange stuff in there that it's hard to get your head around. But I love Coppola. I mean, the film that very rarely gets talked about, but I really love is, Rumblefish.
Yeah,
I just think that's a fabulous film, and even there are even aspects to The Outsiders that I really liked.
I'm glad you didn't say Jack.
Yeah, no, I didn't like Jack.
Okay. Next question. I love these tangents. They're fantastic. The caravan park that you shot in Kenny.
Yep.
Now that's and as well as the bridge that you drive across. That's my wife's hometown. Murchison. There's Murchison, right?
Oh, that one. Sorry, no. Well, the camp where Dad lives is Bowen Heads.
Yep.
But yes, where the mother is buried and that bridge is Murchison, which is where my partner grew up.
You're kidding me. I was going to say, did you have a connection to that place? But you clearly do.
I've known her all my life. I've got a photo of Vic and I working on the orchard when we were like 3 and 5 years of age. My parents knew her parents. And so that film is, that's a classic example. Kenny's a classic example of throwing yourself. Everyone I've ever known or anything I've ever really cared about or my whole sense of ethics about life is jammed into that movie. Right. I became acutely aware that I almost had nothing else to say after that film was finished because it was just all jammed into that. But yeah, Murchison is that cemetery is there. Sadly, the Vic's parents were in Kenny and are now in that cemetery. It's funny how life imitates art and sometimes the reverse.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a favorite place to get away in Victoria?
In Victoria, I would say my favorite getaway place is a little place called the Radio Springs Hotel. And now that's a plug. And the reason why I say that is I'm in a bluegrass band.
Yeah.
And there's 3 of us. And we have had a 9-year residency at that place. And everything about film is hurry up and wait, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about, as we talked about before, just, the average film takes 8 to 10 years to realize. What I love about music is you can get up, play a song, and an audience reacts immediately afterwards. And so I think I would have gone totally and utterly mad if I didn't have this outlet of going to Radio Springs once a month and being just an invisible guy behind a double bass playing bluegrass music from the Appalachian Mountains of America. It's I love it. It's that's my place of comfort. But I do love where I live, which is about 50 minutes north of Melbourne, up in the hills, and it's at the foothill, the foot of the hills. But it's we're on 6 acres, and I spend most of my life looking out this window staring at the rear end of horses. So
was that your property featured in That's Not My Dog?
No, that was, I don't know whose property that was. That was, I wasn't involved in that one. Shane sort of wrote Dad into that. But no, that wasn't. But they could easily have done it here. We have plenty of room.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. It's completely out of left field. What's your favourite carnival food?
Carnival food. That's a great question because we're actually old carny folk. So my father grew up in a carnival. He was his father ran a carnival. He travelled around Australia in a carnival, and then my grandfather died when my dad was 8, and they sold up the carnival, and he lived in the tent. So I think there's some DNA sort of inherited memories in all of that. I've never had damper, but I'm sure I'd like it if I had it because Dad talks about having that. But I love a good jam donut, from a carnival, just a good old fashioned jam donut. What else? Fairy floss. I've never been a big fan of fairy floss. I do like the like a hot dog. Nice. They used to have because I used to work at the showgrounds when I was a kid, the Royal Melbourne Show. Yeah. So I spent a lot of my youth in sort of around carnies, and I used to love those. They were a particular kind of hot dog that was cooked in batter.
Dagwood dog.
Dagwood dog. Yeah.
Yeah. I like them. Americans know them as corn dogs.
Oh, corn dog. Yeah, no, they're good.
And then you dip them in Thailand sauce, just submerge the whole thing in sauce.
yeah. Making me hungry.
I know. Yeah. All right, next question. Back in '93, you made a couple of music videos for INXS, including Make Your Peace is one of them. And this is more of a comment than a question, but the story in that has these two people in a car that's flying along the desert out of control, steering wheel's gone, there's no brakes. They could have jumped, but they chose the route instead.
That's right. Go out with a bang, not a whimper. Well, that was mine. I tried to make it look like they were going fast enough that they were risking their life if they jumped out. Yeah. But I thought it was more entertaining to have them make love and go out with a bang than a whimper. And that was I really enjoyed. That was they wanted to be in it, and I actually said no to them. I realized that was a bit stupid. Yeah, well, actually, that's me. So there you go. You've done it again.
Are you serious? Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. So that's me just doing a little with holding a dead rabbit.
Wow. Well, when you were young, you really looked alike then.
We did look very, very similar. So he looked, he's 7 years younger than me, strangely enough. So he's always coming up the rear. But no, that was we shot that in the middle of nowhere, and the band wanted to be involved, but I said no, I think it's better if you're not, And then I did a live, very sad story actually. I did a live concert video for them in America. It was a concert at Santa Monica hangar. And it was a great experience because my whole crew were mostly Spielberg's crew. So I got given all these lists of of available crew members in LA, and when I looked at their CVs, I just said, I just want all the Spielbergs. So I got the Lumicrane operator that Spielberg used, Danny Pearl. I got the Steadicam operator that had just come off Blue Velvet. I got all these fantastic sort of guys, but the interesting thing was to discover that they were as good as any of the guys I use here in Melbourne. No better, But we shot the entire concert, 13 cameras, and I cut one music video out of it, and we were going to wait to retransfer the whole footage and do the whole concert, and the post-production facility that we stored all the neg at threw it out. Threw all the neg out. So I won't give names. They don't exist anymore, but they threw the neg out. And so all I've got to show for that entire concert that was all recorded on a 48 track, recorder. And, I had a ball working with them, I've only got one song and it's called Time, but it's a lot of fun. They were amazing. I mean, Michael Hutchins and the band were incredible. We shot in rehearsal and as well as during the concert. And I said to them, look, we'll get the Lumicrane really close for all the rehearsal stuff, but you've got to match your performance to what you think you'll be doing in the evening. And my God, it was just, they were such professionals. We did one take and I said, I think you've got to amp it up a little bit. And then they just pushed this button, and you really cannot tell the difference between the performance they did later on in front of an entire crowd and what they were doing just for the camera. Incredible. And Michael was very, very switched on. He walked out, he spotted it. We had 13 cameras. He spotted every one of them. He knew which ones he was going to look best in and really played to those cameras. It's quite, U2 were like that too. I worked on a U2 live concert, and I remember hearing Bono ring, and he had very strict instructions on which cameras to sort of favour.
Wow. Which concert was that?
Yeah. A thing called Love Town, shot in Sydney. It's
Yeah,
Richard
I know the one.
Lowenstein did it, and I was one of the editors on that, and it was great fun. Loved it.
Fantastic. Yeah. And do you think music videos is something people are going to approach you with Dream Screen for?
Yeah, and it'll be totally out of their price range, but I'm here to say that it will be, because the average music video is like $5,000 these days. But I'm here to say I'm going to try not to turn anyone away, because I think it is the perfect medium for this technology, and I think and music video makers are the feature film makers of tomorrow, and so it makes sense to sort of give them a leg up with this and help them out, just as many did with me when I was doing music videos.
Excellent. That's good to hear. And I'm going to end with a question that is not film related. It's another real random one. It's also food related, but I'm wondering what your preference is: soft shell taco or hard shell taco?
I like a hard shell. Yeah, I like the crunch, because I love contrasts. I love the contrasting textures of a soft with. I will often even make a cereal and put something in it so that it's not all just soft. Put something so there's a bit of crunch in it. That's why I love granola and all those sort of things.
Yeah, so if you wrap a soft shell around a hard shell, that's called a gordita.
Oh.
And you don't get the mess.
Right. Okay, I'm going to try that.
I think the Mexicans put cheese in between, and then the cheese, when it's hot, melts the soft shell to the hard shell. There you go.
Oh, there you go. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
I do miss good Mexican from LA when I was over there. It was just
we don't do Mexican very well here. At least not the same.
There's one in okay, I'm going to name drop here, but I can't not. When Guillermo del Toro came to town to work at the studios down here in Melbourne, he was working on The Hobbit, and Peter Jackson had told him to watch Kenny, and for a very short period, Shane and I were in contention for being dwarves, some of the dwarves in The Hobbit. Anyway, he wanted to meet us, so Shane and I went out to dinner with Guillermo del Toro, and it was just the most fantastic evening. But we didn't take him out; he took us out. He had found a Mexican restaurant in Johnson Street in Brunswick, in Fitzroy, that he loved, and he already knew the cook's name and all that. And he served us up some fantastic Mexican that I've never tried before. But it was so there are I would highly recommend, if it's still around. I can't remember what it was called, but it was just between was right near Brunswick Street, and on Johnson. It was on Johnson Street, right near Brunswick Street in Fitzroy.
Wow. I'm sure people watching this will be hitting Google for sure.
Yeah.
Well, mate, thank you for giving your time for this. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to chat with you. Big admirer, and love what you're doing with Dream Screen.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
And you are welcome back at any time.
Oh, please. I enjoyed it.